Ledger is a writing podcast and your rotating dessert tray of ideas. I'm your host, Austin Wilson. Welcome to today's show, and it is a very cool and unique episode that I have had in my mind for at least a couple of months, maybe 3 months. I might all the way back to September, I think. Writer Drew Larimore joins Ledger today for a special reason. I was lucky enough to read his play, UPSTATE, in the very first round of submissions as a script reader for the Austin Film Festival. I think I've maybe mentioned that on some previous episodes that I've been reading scripts for them. It's the film festival and contest for writers, as well as a conference that I got to go to this year, which was amazing. And I happily put Drew's play, UPSTATE, through to the next round. And I also wrote that it had a serious chance of winning the category it was in, which was stage plays. And although it didn't, it did make it all the way to the semifinals, which is actually when I even got the chance to learn Drew's name, because everything is given to the readers anonymously. There's no names attached to any of the scripts. So I was at the film festival and the conference, and I got to see their program, and I finally learned Drew's name and got a chance to reach out, because I knew I had to talk to whoever had written this script that was so amazing and had such an effect on me. So Drew drops by today to talk about the difficulty of writing this play, UPSTATE, and his fear of the reception, but also how happy he was to hear laughter as the two main characters are arguing, but they also commiserate and care for each other during the play. And after they make a difficult, life-altering decision, that this is all taking place because this play is about a married couple who return a child that they've adopted. Page 1, it's right when one of them returns from returning a child that they have adopted. And that premise hit me really hard, and the power of Drew's writing leapt off the page immediately. And I was just so enamored with this that I knew I had to talk to him. So the premise, yeah, super, super good. We also talk about the thing I mentioned right here at the top, how he views writing as this sort of like rotating dessert tray of ideas, because he's also writing, films and musical theater and adult animation, and he's doing a lot of different things and is kind of choosing where he goes as he spins through all of these ideas. And we also even talk about how he felt supported and how he moved forward on writing a topic that was difficult for him and getting through that process. It's an awesome conversation. I'm super glad that he stopped by. And make sure if you want to check out his work, and if you want to even talk about producing UPSTATE or talk to him or his agent about what you could do with it, make sure you go to drewlarimore.com. I'll have that linked in the show notes and everything. But also you want to go check out his other work. He's got a lot of other plays that we talk about in the show. So make sure you go to drewlarimore.com to check those things out. As for my work, as always, head over to austinrwilson.com for free prose and comic book stories. And also, oh yeah, now I can finally say, go to Moss Heart Books. That's Moss, M-O-S-S, Heart, H-E-A-R-T, books.com. That's my brand new bookshop website. And although right now I'm not doing online orders as of yet, there is a link. You can use bookshop.org to sort of help the store out if you want to order books through there using my shop. You can help me as I'm selling physical books right here in my hometown in Indiana. Follow me on Instagram at Mossheart Books, and I'll be doing updates about the bookshop there, but also my writing work and Ledger as well. So probably was a time long past that I should have had an Instagram account, but oh well, it's there now, Moss Heart Books, so go check it out. But as for now, check out this awesome conversation with writer Drew Larimore. Big first thing, like I mentioned, I found your work because I was the first round reader at the Austin Film Festival. I read drama, comedy, full-length feature films, I read fictional podcast scripts, and I read stage plays. And one of the ones that I read that I immediately sent a note to the script supervisor that this one could win was your script for UPSTATE. It really, really blew me away and stuck with me for a long time, and I'm still thinking about it. And literally while I was at the film festival, I told as many people as I could about it because I was super excited about it, and the premise was enough to have impact on people. So I want to talk about the premise. And for films, they use log lines and taglines and stuff like that. So I kind of want to talk about your arrival at the premise for Upstate, your play, and the process of arriving at the idea.
Thank you so much for your kind words about Upstate, and it's so nice to talk to you. I don't think I've ever spoken to a reader before, through one of those festivals that's reached out. So that was a treat for me. Upstate is a play that runs about 80 minutes, maybe a little bit more, no intermission. Takes place in 24 hours, and it takes place the early morning of when Miles and Nathaniel, a married couple who've moved to upstate New York, have just returned their adopted child, their adopted daughter. So the play takes place and unfolds throughout the 24 hours that follows that tragic incident and really goes a bunch of different places.
So that premise, so as I was telling people about it, I was saying, page one, scene one, the entire thing is set up, and the genesis of the entire drama happens in literally like 4 lines of dialogue, and everyone's jaw would drop when I would tell them the premise. So I really want to figure out, as you were writing it, when you started specifically with the idea, like no one knows where ideas come from unless you have a really specific place where this one came from. I'm just so curious about the writing process of something like this, because there are large portions of it where the couple is talking around the thing that they're experiencing, and that was one of the more powerful aspects of it to me. So kind of walk me through your process of putting together a script where they are avoiding a topic for a significant portion, and then sort of hopping on to the top of it after they talk around it.
Sure. I think initially, look, I'm not sure where anything comes from in terms of inspiration. I think I know something is. We all get a lot of ideas. It's not uncommon to see to have an idea. I think I know an idea is worth exploring and worth investing the months of turmoil and labor into shaping it when it won't go away. So the idea of adoption disillusion, which is the technical term for this process of returning an adopted child, was something that really struck me for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's in the media a little bit. There is some stories about it, so it's not totally underground, but it is a dark side of adoption that no one really talks about. There are friends of friends who I know have gone through this, so it has happened to acquaintances and people I know of. Technically, this play is not told from the perspective of the adopted daughter, who is a baby. So I think it is not an adoption play in that respect that sort of takes her side, although there is a lot of dialogue about caring and concern for her well-being, which was perhaps one of the reasons why they decided to not follow through with this adoption. So writing about it was tough. This was a really hard play. Some plays are easier than others. I find I can write a really serious play about once a year, and then I need to pivot to musical comedy or something really lighthearted just to sort of make sure I don't go off the deep end. I think my parents have a place in South Carolina, so I was there by myself working on a draft of this, and I think I did 8, 9, 10 drafts, just going back over it and going back over it, and really trying to imagine what this conversation would be like. You had mentioned that they don't speak about the actual incident directly all the time. I think that is very realistic because really this tragedy is a catalyst for them to talk about the rest of their problems. I think that I'm laughing inappropriately at that, but I think
No, I understand why. Yeah.
that's why I was drawn to this is that you have countless people that have kids to cover up their relationship problems. You see it all the time. I think now it's possible for same-sex couples to do that, whereas, it wasn't as common 20-25 years ago. So I think that who are they outside of wanting to be parents, and who were they together interested me, and what were they covering up by wanting to leave New York City and move upstate, which for your listeners that aren't in the New York area that don't know, upstate for New York City dwellers is a kind of a fantasy place where, like adoption can be, by the way, told to me by many social workers, it's a place where you have land finally and space and can perhaps fulfill dreams and have things that you couldn't have in a very cramped space with a bunch of grumpy people. So I think their adoption was a fantasy. I think the upstate life was a fantasy. And then it all came crashing down after about a couple of months, which is how long that they had her before they returned her and sent her back to the social services. To write this, because I am not adopted and don't have any direct experience with it, I had to interview some adoption social workers. So that's where I got a lot of information about this process. Adoption dissolution happens about, depending on the state, 10% of the time, sometimes more. So it is more common than you think. You just don't hear about it. I think it can happen for very serious, legitimate reasons, like a child is harming other children or adults or pets in the home. And then I was shocked to find out it occurred for ridiculous reasons. One social worker told me that a mother ended an adoption because this adopted daughter that she had would eat chips all the time before dinner, and it ruined the fantasy of dinner. I don't know, because it's a fantasy. So a lot of these social workers I spoke to talked about the fantasy of adoption, and when that's broken, sometimes this can happen. So I was interested in fantasy and what happens when that comes crashing down and you're forced to really deal with the stark reality of this, which there's a lot of guilt. These guys do not do this, flippantly or
Right.
without a conscience. I think that that's very important. They beat themselves up over it throughout the course of the play in various ways. So yeah, it wasn't done. It's not done callously or insensitively either, because I think we do like them, even though they're at the worst moment in their lives, definitely their worst moment of their lives as a couple. And I think that's why the play was hard to write, was because you were really writing these people at the lowest point that they've ever experienced.
So let's talk a little more about that, about the feelings that you go through as you're writing things. Because I'm assuming that that's not unique to writing upstate. That as you're writing other things, you're putting yourself through things your characters are experiencing, at least to a level that they're going to leave some sort of imprint on you. Is that your experience with other things as well that you've written?
Yes, I have to do that. I'm jealous of writers that don't totally immerse themselves in this almost Stanislavski way of writing. But I had to really be in that house and be in their shoes and be working from their perspective in writing this. The play takes place the morning of is the first scene. The second scene is dinner, which attempts their attempt at normalcy, and then the middle of the night, and then the next morning. So it really takes place in real time. I'd say that's pretty common for most of my plays. I don't write a lot of plays where it's like 1 month later, 2 months later. It all takes place pretty much in real time, which I think is adds to the intensity, of just of the clock ticking. So being in their shoes, I think one character comes from a very privileged background and has a very different upbringing than his husband, who is a former dancer who encountered a tragic incident with a set piece that crushed the bones in his feet that rendered him unable to dance ever again. So there's a lot of bitterness from the perspective of that character. So yeah, they have a banter that can be very funny. I didn't realize it was as funny until we workshopped it earlier this year, which I'd love to talk about a little bit later. But they really get each other where they know it hurts in this. And I think that was really hard because, again, it's a relationship you don't want to, and it's a moment you don't want to be in. So I don't want to say I went a little nuts, writing it, but I was disturbed by some of the things that they said to each other. And I really wrote this for two actors who are a couple to do together. I think that would be a add to the theatricality of this. And as I showed it to real life couples who might be interested, they were not interested because they did not want to say these things to
Right.
each other that they did. I mean, they don't get really nasty. It's not like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf stuff, you know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
definitely gets there. It's a brutal honesty. It's a 24 hours of reckoning. It's I think they say things they never have said to each other. They reveal things they never have revealed to each other before, which is moving. They go down memory lane a little bit. We sort of are charmed by how they met and some of their earlier days in Brooklyn and what that was like. So it wasn't all bad. And they can be hilarious. You know, they deal with this incident through humor a lot, but it was tough, and I was glad to be done with the writing part of it.
Did you know you were going to write it and you were like, I can't be around people while I'm writing this? Or did you just know I'm going to write something and I should go somewhere to focus? Talk me through that process. Like, was it a thing you decided because you knew it was going to be a hard play?
Usually, there's a moment where it's a second or third draft. Maybe I've waited a while, sometimes 6 months, sometimes longer, shorter, and I come back to it where I know I've got to shape it up and get it in gear to send it out and move it forward. And that is just an obsessive rewriting process where I just, like I said, this was anywhere from seven to, it was probably, it could have been even more than 10 drafts I took just in a row. And no, every time I do that with every play, I just did this with a play a few weeks ago. I finally had finished it. And no, you don't really talk to anyone. You're not really enjoying anything else. You can't, I can't read anything else. I can't really watch anything else. I can't write anything else. You were just totally immersed in this until you know the draft. I sort of have I have a way of knowing when I hit that 10th, 11th, 12th draft obsessively. I know that I've I'm getting close to doing all I can do this time, and that it'll be time to send it out. So no, it was really hard. I also don't know a lot of people. I live in Brooklyn, so I was down in South Carolina doing this. I don't know really anybody down there, so it's a perfect place to have a little writing retreat, you know. And it was tough. It was tough to live with the dialogue in your head. I think with this. I'm making this out to be like it's not an important, enjoyable play to sit through because I think it can be. I don't know your experience reading it, but I think writing those darker moments of this and imagining myself in this situation as both of these men creating it was difficult. So it ended up becoming more humorous, which I was thankful for when we got it in front of an audience.
Well, even from my perspective as reading it, I obviously I love the play. You know, that's why I reached out to you and I told everyone I came across at the film festival about it. Whenever I met other readers or whoever, it is an enjoyable play. That doesn't mean it's not hard because I do think that it has those moments, but they are funny. You're right that they have a funny banter that you can tell is built on years of intimate knowledge with each other. It's a really great relationship on the page, and I really did enjoy reading it a ton.
And can I ask why? What was it? The banter specifically, or what?
The premise
Yeah.
immediately. So the premise hooked me immediately, and literally scene one, as soon as I realized what had happened, that he was coming back from dropping off their adopted child, I was like, holy
Hmm.
shit, that is massive. And I knew that whatever was going to happen was going to be memorable because they're in a situation that was uncharted. And the other thing, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk with you about specifically, just because my experience as a reader, knowing how many things I read that I said no to, as soon as I saw your script and I saw the dialogue, literally it's formatting, like nuts and bolts, I was just like, okay, this person's legit. Which it maybe sounds callous or dismissive of other writers, but there's so many people who don't know formatting or the way to introduce a scene or a character, and just your writing. It's one of those things that's like sort of almost impossible to describe or define, but it's like I felt your voice on the page immediately. Like it's that sort of ephemeral, hard to define thing. As soon as I started reading it, I was like, this person knows how to write.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, it's like I told my wife, I was like, whoever wrote this one's good. And yeah, like I had no idea who wrote it until I was at the film festival. I didn't know who wrote it, and I thought about it a lot. And that initial page, really, page
Mm.
one. is the thing where I was like, I'm in. This sort of plays into what you were talking about with workshopping, and I've talked about this previously with a playwright named Bella Poynton who was on the show, and I've read about it as well, about writing the script really being, even if you're like 10 drafts in, really being this early step until you get a performance and you can start workshopping it. And I'm so curious about, it's sort of two-parter. We'll tackle the workshopping thing first. I'm so curious about how that works for you as far as rewriting goes. Does it feel like rewriting, or does it feel like you're starting completely over?
Oh, you're totally rewriting. I mean, it's you're asked to go home. Typically, a workshop, they can be expensive to do, and money's always an issue in theater. So you want to keep it, a week, and then there's some form of public presentation. So in this particular case, I was very lucky because it was workshops through a series with the studios of Key West. So I got to go to Key West in late January, early February for me. And we had an actor from New York come in, and then a local actor. Steven Katsakos is a wonderful director that's based out of there in New York. He's directed some work of mine before and just sort of has a way of bringing things to life without me needing to. He just like reads my mind and then suddenly it appears on stage. So he's a very special person and a special director to me. So I was very lucky to have him at the helm. So yes, we workshopped it for I think a week and then had two readings of it for two different audiences. A few people came back a second time, which was cool because they liked it that much. But yeah, you it is rewriting. Your something doesn't work, and you're asked to go home and to fix it, and it needs to be ready to go tomorrow morning. So it's a great adrenaline rush, but it's a lot of pressure, and you have to move quickly. And then after a certain point, you have to stop so that you can have a lock script so the actors can do their thing because it's not fair to keep giving them newer stuff, the day before or something. So we did this in about a week, and it was an interesting workshop. It was sort of a hybrid of a performance and a workshop. There was a very minimal set, but Stephen did something that I haven't seen work before, which is they were on book and off book, meaning they had memorized some lines and then had not memorized others. So this it was interesting to watch the script sort of be put down and the them interact with each other without the script in some moments, and then how it sort of came back into the scene. And so it was like watching a real hybrid. It was the best workshop I've ever had of a play before, so it was very positive. And I was really relieved to hear people laugh as much as they did, and that made me feel a lot better about the script, that I wasn't taking us into just some total, cricket land where everyone's sobbing at the end of it. So it was tough. I couldn't read the expression on some audience members' faces. I remember the first one we did, there was a lady in front of me who just kept turning to the woman next to her and giving her a look. And I thought, oh God, they're offended. Because anytime you write about adoption, and this is again not from the perspective of the child that was adopted. So there's going to be some feelings about that, which I understand. And I'm not qualified to write that play, so I hope somebody else does if they haven't already. But anyway, this woman kept looking to her neighbor, her seatmate, and I kept thinking, oh God, they're offended or something. And then she turned around at the end of it and she said, "Are you the playwright?" And I sort of said, "Yeah." And she said, "I'm a foster parent and you have really struck a chord in me. This was incredible." So stuff like that happens too at workshops that you never know from an audience that really hits you. So, but yes, it is a rewriting process. Totally.
From a career standpoint, and this is another thing that I've asked other writers about, because for screenwriting, you sometimes are writing spec scripts, and I'm just so curious about writing for the stage, because do you ever write a play? I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it because I feel like I know some of the answer. Talk to me about writing plays with the knowledge or lack of knowledge that it will be staged, and your process for writing a play. Like, are you at a point in your career now where you're not writing a play that's maybe not going to be staged? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there is no guarantee anything you write is going to be staged. And there is no guarantee, and if it is, it will not be staged in the immediate future. A lot of plays, it's very weird. Plays and musicals make the rounds. They go to workshops and festivals and readings, and they're for 7, 8 years, and then finally resurface, at some point in time. And somewhere. So there is no guarantee for that. You just have to take a blind leap of faith that it will, pretend it will, and I think get a little Neville Goddard about it, and just the law of assumption, and just assume that this will be produced. But with that said, I think if you want to be a produced playwright, you need to write plays that can be produced. This is a two-character play, one set. That is what in post-COVID times theaters are interested in. So
Yeah. I'm curious then, if you had this idea, how long did you have this idea before it became Upstate the script? Was it a quick process between the initial idea and getting it onto the page?
I don't know when that sort of acorn fell from the tree and hit me on the head that, had the initial idea. I'm not sure when that happened, but I usually, because as a writer, I write plays, I write screenplays, I'm working even in adult animation now, which is different for me. I do musical comedies, satirical musical comedies, book and lyrics for it. So I like working in different mediums. So I look at it as a revolving dessert tray. So I'm going to pull one out and work on it for a little while, put it back, and then move the dessert tray around. So ideas and the inception of ideas sort of work the same way. I probably had the idea for a year before I sat down and did it. I think Adam Rapp said this once. He said, it's a play you have to write when it's an animal that just keeps gnawing at you. And, I'll have a lot of really interesting, I have an idea book somewhere, as I'm sure you do and everybody else does, interesting ideas that like hit me at midnight and I think it's going to be amazing. And then you take a look at it a few days later and you think, what the hell is that? That makes no sense. I
Right.
mean, I would love to just write a coffee table book of some of those, like with some illustrations, because they make no sense. And so at this time in life, it has to stand the test of time. And usually I give it about 6 months or a year. I think now I have a safe group of colleagues and friends. I can talk to them and bounce some of these ideas off of if this is something that makes sense and
Yeah.
works. So that helps as well. But I bet I was rumbling around with Upstate for about a year. Also, I was scared to write it. That's a play I was terrified to write. I didn't think I could do it. I thought it would piss a lot of people off, and it still might. I thought that I was not. I wasn't sure it was smart to write a play that, well, it's not a rosy portrayal of a same-sex relationship at all. It's sort of warts and all in terms of how they're having it out. So between that and the adoption themes, I was really hesitant to piss people off. But I did it anyway, and I guess now that I look back, it's one of the braver things that I've tackled.
Talk to me about your, I guess, struggle. Talk to me about the path to writing it and the struggle of figuring out how it was going to hit people.
Yeah, I'd written a few rough drafts of this play and knew I was approaching the time where it was really was going to be probably looking at rewriting it over and over again for about 3 or 4 months to try to really get what I wanted from it. And I was nervous about it because I was getting mixed reactions from people. I have written plays that have made people, audience members, critics angry before, so it's a very intense experience. But I remember telling my agent Mark at the time about how nervous I was to write this play. Mark and his husband have two beautiful adopted children, so he was kind of a perfect person to run this play by. And I just said, I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off, or I worry I'm going to piss a lot of people off by writing this play. And he said something that really stuck with me. And he said, Drew, if you're not pissing some people off, you're doing something wrong. So that really stuck with me and helped me, I think, make make the next big leap with the project.
Here's what's funny is as I was reading it, and even as I was telling people about it and thinking about it as often as I have, I never once thought about them as bad people.
Mm,
I never thought that they were failures. I thought that they were trying to figure out a way to be okay. And they don't come across as people who, like you say, they're not doing this callously. You didn't write it in a way where it's like are constantly, I forget which one of them is like, it is she okay?
hmm.
Did she have the blanket? Like they're not just like, oh, thank God, now it's time to for us to have this fantasy
Yeah.
again. That's not what the play is at all. They don't come across as bad in any sense to me. I would kind of be shocked, and I would honestly probably argue with someone if they were to say that they're bad people because of what they did. It seems much more like they chose a thing that was hard, but that was the right thing for them. That's how it read to me.
Hmm. An impossible decision, right?
Right.
And one that they had to make quickly, for her to find the best home that was right for her, because they did adopt her as a baby. This was not like an older adoption. So they did that conscientiously as well. I mean, they're not perfect, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't have thought this through a little bit more before they did it, but yeah, well, I'm glad that you would argue with people for that. So I will take you around for talkbacks when I'm yelled at.
Yes.
You
Let
can
me
stick up
know.
for me, because man,
Give me a
if
call.
that isn't a gladiator battle with some of those talkbacks, I don't know what is.
Well, what's funny is, and this, I mean, I can't avoid it sounding like I'm patting myself on the back, but I was at the film festival telling someone about your play, and they were like, "Wait, what is this play?" And I was like, "This is a play that I read for the film festival." And the guy was like, "You're pitching someone else's play?" And I was like, "It's really good. I'm sorry, like it's just a really good play."
I appreciate that, and I thank you for talking about it. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I don't submit a lot of plays to film festivals. A lot of them don't accept plays, and to be honest with you, I'm
Yeah,
not really sure until it becomes more common that it really helps a play. I mean, that's just not really how a play gets produced. So,
I wanted to talk about that a bit because obviously I am pretty obsessed with playwriting and plays, and I write some, but I'm really scared of getting them produced and the energy that I would need for that. It's scary to me. And I think also, the old fears, success and failure, all the things that you convince yourself to be afraid of. But I wanted to talk specifically about submitting to Austin Film Festival because I found it because I'm a writer and I love writing and I love interacting with that world. And I was curious about submitting a play to it, which I love the film festival. Like it's a massive deal for me specifically, but I was very curious about what made you submit to it, and just how that falls within the scope of your career, where you are, and the things you want to achieve, and how it played a part into your life.
well, I was hoping it would get a little of attention. I think it has now with you, so thank you. I think my intuition was on there, but I think it's one of the few plays I have submit. It's one of the few festivals I've submitted a play to. I'm not exactly sure what my thinking was, but I thought that the topic would have stuck out in a stack of scripts. I've been a reader before too, so a controversial topic always helps. I also think there is a world where this would be a very interesting film, a small film, a very intimate two-person film. Obviously, I want to see it realized fully on the stage first and have a life, but I, I think that this would be a great film. So I think I was also thinking about that too, in hopes that perhaps it might catch the eye of a filmmaker that would keep it on his or her radar.
Yeah, I think it also could be a very powerful film. I mean, it's already very powerful in and of itself as it is, and I'm of the mind that adaptation isn't should never be the defining aspect of a thing. That just is a separate thing from it. It's already the thing. Like you did it. It's the play, and getting it to be itself on stage, I think, is an awesome idea before you get to the film stage. Writing it, you said a few things that I wanted to kind of talk about, and feel free to tell me to shut up and we can move on. I was curious about your fear. You were talking about how scared you were, and I know we've talked a little bit about, the adoption topic. But also know you mentioned the fantasy of upstate, and you talk about living in Brooklyn and leaving New York. On your website, you say you leave New York when you can't stand it anymore.
It's meant to be a joke, but yeah, that's true.
Well, sure, yeah. But I was curious about the ways in which, because obviously there's no way to escape ourselves. Everything that we are, sneaks into what we're writing in some way. But I did want to ask you about that fear and going somewhere other than New York to write the play. And how much do you think you were trying to maybe find a fantasy life for however long it took you to write it to escape the fear, or if that's just total nonsense that I made up?
Well, a lot of writers live upstate. It's quiet. It's accessible to the city, so it's a wonderful place to live. I have spent some time up there and workshopped a few plays up there. So I don't think I'm not sure if I worked on a draft of this play up there ever. Maybe I did, but it isn't uncommon for me to run away somewhere else and work on a play or another project. I've been fortunate enough to do a handful of residencies here and abroad. So that just helps you get out of the city mentality and distractions and all the responsibilities you have here. I was having coffee with a development person last week, and he said, "I don't know how the hell you're a writer here with all the distractions. I would never get a word written." I think Brooklyn's a little easier. It's a little more quiet, laid back. At least my part of Brooklyn is. So, but I think that I would be lying if I didn't have an upstate fantasy, as many friends of mine do. Also, New York has changed since COVID. I have to say it's
Yeah.
going through something right now. It's everyone's saying it, from the waiters I talk to colleagues to friends and stuff. It's just not as fun as it used to be. It doesn't seem to have the same energy. Maybe it's a cycle. I don't know, but I've been here for a while now, and you can write from pretty much anywhere. Yeah, I'm really thankful for residencies. The Jurassic one out in California is wonderful for anyone interested in applying to them, and there are quite a few upstate. Yaddo is one that I haven't done that people really seem to enjoy. So, you really need to get away from your life sometimes and everything in it to crank something out. And so that's been a big part of my writing life. So not fantasy, it's been productive.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. And so knowing the other plays that you've written, and you've had write ups in Variety and Playbill and the New Yorker and New York Times. And I'm curious how writing has changed for you as far as how it feels. Does it feel any different than it ever has before? Or does it just still feel like, I mean, earlier, the way we were talking about it, and this is not uncommon for obviously a lot of writers and definitely not for me, the struggle and the pain. I've talked to some who are just like, it's a great, I love it. I love getting to the page. That's not my experience a lot of the times. And I'm curious if writing feels that way to you now or ever has, or just the way that writing's changed throughout your life and how it feels for you.
Gosh, no one's ever asked me that before. And I think that's a line from Upstate. I think he says, "You've never told me that before, or you've never asked me that before," as they reveal things to each other. But I think, look, I've been writing plays since I was a kid, and I
Yeah.
was very fortunate, even in high school, to have productions of one acts produced up here and off Broadway festivals, and we'd come up and see them. I'm from Louisville originally, so came from a very supportive family with all of that, which is wonderful. Obviously, I don't approach something the same as I did then. I think I'm not sure I enjoy it. I mean, it's sort of like it's especially when you're presenting it. I was telling someone that the other day, when you're presenting a piece, like a reading, a workshop, or even a performance, it's just I I hate it. I want to sit in the back,
Yeah.
and I know it's my special day, and I should be all excited, but it's like getting a medical procedure in front of everybody, it's incredibly uncomfortable. I can't wait till it's over. Yeah, it's almost it's embarrassing and nerve-wracking and exciting and so many different things. So Writing it is hard. Writing anything is hard. It's I have a setup here in Brooklyn, which is nice. So I do write from a co-working space, but I write from home as well. And I've talked to very extroverted people who said, I don't know how you spend so much time at home and can write from home. And I said, I've planned my day where it takes the least amount of energy to go get coffee and then walk the 4 feet to my desk to sit down because it takes so much energy just to pour your stuff out on that page. So no, it's not pleasant. I think the first drafts are the hardest. It's some life coach was talking about this the other day. I was listening to. She calls it trouble at the border of imagination and physical reality, and you're pulling something from the imaginary world into physical reality, and there's always trouble at the border doing that. So it's always a relief when the first or second draft is done. But once I get going and I just keep revising it and going over and over and over again, sort of obsessively, that's where I get into a rhythm, and that's where it's more pleasant. But it's tough.
Oh yeah, I struggle with a lot of those things as well. And first drafts are definitely hard. Are you saying dialogue out loud as you're writing, or are you
No,
all keeping it all up top?
no, nor Upstate is one of my more serious pieces. A lot of my other stuff is, I think, a little more laugh out loud funny consistently. So, nor am I laughing out loud. I never think anything is funny when I'm writing it. I'm not. People say I've written stuff where people say you're a comedy writer. I do not consider myself a comedy writer. It's a very introverted, quiet process. But I know I'm onto something when they sort of start speaking to each other and I'm just the scribe, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, other than Upstate, what do you have right now? I know you have a play that's streaming. People can watch. Tell me a little about that.
Sure, that's not a new play. That's been around since the pandemic. It's a play called Smithtown that's streaming through the studios of Key West, so you can rent it on Vimeo. I almost said Venmo, but Vimeo, and that's wonderful. Stephen Katsako's also directed that, and that was an old play that we had adapted for COVID times when there were more streaming plays going on, and it's about it's a sad play about a texting scandal in a small college town. It's four monologues told from the perspective of four people directly, indirectly involved in a tragedy that results from this texting scandal and how they're struggling with what responsibility that they had in it. So the cast features Michael Urie and Harada, Colby Lewis, and Constance Schulman. So it's a really fantastic watch for their performances alone. It was really neat to have a streaming play because a lot of people from all over the world got to see it, which is not the case for plays usually.
Yeah, that's when you said that in the email, that's the first I think that's the first play I had heard of that was streaming that I could go and
Oh,
watch.
nice.
And yeah, so I was very interested in that concept, and also just a way to make plays in general feel a lot more accessible.
Yeah, I think they're not doing it with everything, but I know, like, for example, Monday night I'm going to a monthly new musicals event where they present four songs from four different shows that are works in progress. And if you can't make it, there's a streaming button you can hit and watch from home or from wherever
That's
you are.
awesome.
So there are more opportunities to make things more accessible, which is really cool. But that's called Smithtown, and that will also be published in the River Styx anthology lit magazine next spring. So that'll be neat. That's a that's a lit magazine, as far as I know, that's been around for a while out of St. Louis, and that should reach a new audience. So I'm looking forward to that. But I also have I have a cast album of an original musical I co-wrote called The New Peggy, starring Ann Hirata, that you can listen on all streaming platforms, and an EP of a really irreverent holiday show called The Bestest Office Christmas Party Ever, featuring Mary Testa and a bunch of other people. Billy Reese wrote the music for that. So all of that is also on streaming platforms as well. a lot of fun. So yeah, in addition to that, I'm currently working on a trilogy of plays about the South. I can't. I'd love to work on something easy. It's three plays about three plays that take place in three different parts of the South that can stand on their own 2 feet. They don't need to be performed together, but they have common themes. They share a few characters, and it basically is about the common thread is maternal or matriarch struggling with a changing society and some disconnection from her children. So that's the sort of loose theme connected with all of them. But the first one is called Cannibals of McGower County, which takes place in Texas. We just did a reading of that this May, and we were fortunate enough to get Margot Martindale to read the lead role in that, which was really exciting. So we are trying to move forward with that with a production sometime in the near future. And I had just finished the second play in that series, which takes place in Alabama about a family that runs a fireworks empire that goes corrupt. And the third I'm about to begin working on. So I'm from Kentucky originally, so it's important to me to leave behind a little bit of Southern work.
Well, if you were going to write something easy, what would you even do with yourself? How would you even do
I don't know. I don't know.
it?
I would like to get a lot of money to do something easy at some point in time for a little while. That would be nice, but I guess this is just not where my interest is or my work ethic. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The most of the time the easy stuff that comes with money, there's strings on that stuff. Like you end up finding out like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought, or oh, the money's not really what I thought it was going to be, or man, this makes me feel like shit and I thought it was going to make me feel okay. And I don't know, even struggling on something and getting it to a point where you're happy with it, even that struggle, isn't it? Yeah. For me at least, sometimes that struggle is I'm almost nostalgic for it where it's like I like this thing now and you know what, feeling like shit for those months. Maybe now it feels good. And there's this weird sort of time travel where it's like, oh, I actually was doing something important for myself in those moments when I was beating the hell out of myself.
Yeah, I think well, also most of us have to live in both worlds and do both things, and you know balance that on the dessert tray. But I would say most of my work is dark comedy and features a lot of quirky female protagonists. And I just finished adapting Lise Haynes's novel "In My Sister's Country" into a screenplay, so very excited about that. I'm now working on an adult animation pilot with music that's very bizarre, but still fun because you can just do whatever you want with adult animation. You can just be as
Yeah.
big of a weirdo as you want to be. So it's an apocalyptic musical piece that I'm working on with a composer. So that's a nice break.
Yeah, you don't have to write just two people in a house
No,
for animation.
you sure don't. It's funny talking about two character plays though, and some I was thinking about this morning because I knew I'd be talking to you. In some ways they are easier two-handers because it is just them and they usually have a history. Plays where the characters have a history are often 10 times more exciting than when they're strangers. So there is an inherent banter and dialogue that you can sort of get off to the races with. But then it's harder because it is just two people. There's nowhere else to go. There's got to be enough between them to really mine that and go there. So it's both easier and harder, but I enjoyed it, and it's I find that they're shorter plays, two character plays. They need to be shorter. They go kind of in for the jugular, and then it needs to be over. Upstate definitely does that. Upstate has a really purposeful, ambiguous ending too. We don't really know. They aren't able to say the name of their formerly adopted daughter until the last scene, really, until the last few pages. The catharsis that they go through it's got a bit of a creepy, ambiguous ending, and you're not really sure if they stay together or if they don't. So I think when anyone reads it or when we workshopped it, that was an interesting question I always ask people was, do you think that they stick it out or do you think that this is a separation? So what did you think? Did you think that they
I think that they separate.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And the thing that there's a weird thing where when I'm reading, for me, because I'm like looking for themes, and in your work, all that stuff was all there for me. So I had a lot of fun mining, the things you're setting up in the plays and looking at connections that were maybe subliminal. Like they have an antique shop, which I think plays into the fantasy that of them being upstate, where
Mm-hmm.
they're selling things from the past. And
Mm,
I, I think for me, them making that, like we were talking about earlier, that insanely difficult decision, that was the right decision. I think it opened up a door for them mentally to be like, well, what other hard decisions do we need to make that are probably the right decision?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we can't do that, then we probably can't be together. That's how my head like took me down the
Interesting.
path of do they or don't they. And it's also one of the things that I knew I wasn't going to ask. I didn't want a definitive answer from you. Like I don't know if you have in your head, like I've talked about this with my friends a lot, or one of my friends a lot, about intent as far as writers and directors and creators go, and whether or not you should ever tell someone like the actual answer to the ambiguous ending, or if you should just be like, I know what I think, but I don't want to color like public perception of what the play actually is or how people will interact with it. So I was trying to figure out a way to talk about it and like talk around it, and you gave me the perfect opportunity to do it. So I appreciate it.
No, it's just a question. It evokes a really emotional response from a lot of people. One lady I asked after our workshop, one of our performances, and she was so worked up from the whole thing. She just came up to me and she said, they have no business being together, and I don't ever want to see them together again. I mean, then she kind of stormed off, and then I had other people come up and say of course they stay together. They bond more than they ever have. So it's interesting it's about 50-50, and I hope it
Yeah.
stays that way. I think though, regardless of that though, and that's not a answer to a question I'm even sure I have, but the quote that I keep coming back to, which is referenced in the play, is "Wherever I go, I meet myself." So there is a theme of running away. One of the characters is a runaway in terms of his childhood, and has sort of been from foster home to foster home for various reasons. They run away to upstate. They sort of are running away from their problems, and so that quote of "Wherever I go, I meet myself," I think really resonates with this. So whether they stay together or not, I think they have to deal with each other and with themselves. So it's something that people think about a lot, I think, when they discuss it.
It's an amazing play. I
Well,
was
thank
honored to
you.
get to read it, and I really appreciate you stopping by to chat with me. And I hope you keep putting yourself through hell, but also giving yourself some fun stuff to write, because I think your stuff's great.
Oh, thank you. It runs the gamut. There is fun stuff out there, so please check it out. I have got all the music tracks too up from my other work, the musical work on drewlarimore.com. And we are actively shopping upstate, so anyone out there interested in taking a read, please contact me, and my agent and I can get you hooked up with the script. So
Thanks for coming on, Drew.
thank you. It was a pleasure. Appreciate it.
That was my chat with Drew Larimore, the writer of Upstate, among many other plays you can go check out at drewlarimore.com. I loved this chat. It was so much fun, and I highly recommend you seek Drew's work out. It's very, very good. So again, drewlarimore.com. Thank you to Drew for coming on. Thanks to the Austin Film Festival for just existing and being an awesome place. I had a blast going there and meeting a ton of people, and it really does feel like one of those things where I'm going to have a sort of before and after kind of demarcation in my life of before I went to the film festival and after. It was just amazing, and I'm gonna go every year if I can. Again, go to my website, austinrwilson.com. Go to Moss Hart Books. That's Hart with an Heart, but yes, it is named after the playwright Moss Hart. Go to mosshartbooks.com. You can buy books through my bookshop.org link right now to help support the store. But also, if you're in Indiana, hey, stop by the store and buy yourself some books. But as for now, go get some writing done. I'll talk to you soon.